Thank you very much for Margareth from Uganda, l'Africa Messina Uganda, and then Leonardo from ECVC, l'Africa Messina Europe, and then Bang Hendarman from SPI, and our comrade Abdulvohid Safarov from Tajikistan, from Anahita, and we waiting for Professor Rafi from India. I think now he is still in the court for the process of the court in India. Ya, balik ke bahasa Indonesia. Ya, tadi kita sudah sudah melihat video dari aksi demonstrasi SPI pada Hari Pangan atau Hari Kedaulatan Pangan tekan 16 Oktober, dan pada saat itu saya dan Pak Leonardo sedang mengikuti rapat dari Afrika Messina di Zimbabwe. Jadi tentu tidak bisa ikut demo. Dan apa yang disampaikan oleh ketum tadi di orasi di demo bahwa kita masih menghadapi menghadapi situasi kelaparan yang tinggi, terkhusus di Indonesia dan juga di dunia berdasarkan laporan ketahanan pangan dan gizi, atau bahasa Inggrisnya adalah State of the Food Security and Nutrition of the World, SOFI, atau gitu tingkat SOFI 2025. Dan kita pada hari ini kita belajar dan berbagi pengalaman terkait dengan perjuangan kedaulatan pangan di negara-negara yang sebut saya tadi, ada Uganda, ada Tajikistan, ada Eropa, ada India, dan ada di Indonesia. Dan mengingatkan kita terkait dengan hak atas pangan dan kedaulatan pangan di UN Drop pasal 15, dan juga terkait dengan hak atas pangan di PBB. Ini sangat mengingatkan kita bagaimana kita harus memenuhi kebutuhan pangan. Dan terima kasih atas kehadiran pimpinan dan anggota SPI dari semua provinsi di Indonesia, dan juga para pemuda ya yang sedang mengikuti pendidikan agroekologi selama hampir 1 bulan di Bogor, dan juga ada sahabat-sahabat kita dari Vietnam, ada dari Kamboja, ada dari Malaysia, ada dari Myanmar. Ya, ini sangat sangat luar biasa, dan semoga kita bisa berbagi. Nah, untuk pembicara pertama, saya berikan waktu kepada Ibu Margareth dari Uganda, dan waktu selama 15 menit. So, silahkan Ibu Margareth. Yeah, please, Margareth, it is your time to speak.
Thank you so much
You.
for the invitation, and I may not share screen, but I have some presentation. As you have said, I'm from ESAFF Uganda, and I also sit on the steering committee of La Via Campesina, Eastern and Southern Africa region. I'm really privileged to be part of this meeting. So as ESAFF, we are a small-scale farmers network which became operational in 2008 and is now the largest small-scale farmers-led movement. Its work is to strengthen farmers' capacity to make informed decisions and participate in decision-making processes. The organization has 12,588 member community groups across 54 districts, representing over 1.2 million farmers, and 67% of whom So ESAFF Uganda is a chapter of ESAFF network spanning in 17 countries across eastern and southern part of Africa. Looking at the situation of food in Uganda, food production in Uganda, agriculture employs 68% of Uganda's workforce and contributes 24% of GDP, that is gross domestic product. And you can find that in the Uganda Bureau of UBO statistics. And also the small-scale farmers holding less than acres produced over 80% food supply. However, food production faces challenges. One is unpredictable rainfall and prolonged drought, reducing yield by 20 to 30% annually. There is also increased use of chemical fertilizers and synthetic pesticides, threatening soil health and biodiversity. There is decline in local seed diversity. Over 60% of farmers rely on informal seed system, yet policy favors certified commercial seed. There is the problem of post-harvest losses, which remains highest. It is up to 30 to 40% of the grains wheat and other perishable goods. So that is what the situation in Uganda is like in terms of also. Then coming to the policies. A little. Yes, on the food policy context in Uganda, we have a number of policies and framework in Uganda which protects and promotes food production in Uganda. One is the National Agriculture Policy 2013, which promotes commercialization and value addition. We have the National Seed Policy 2018. This policy emphasizes formal seed sector and less recognition of farmers' variety, meaning that the farmers' knowledge, the farmers' variety are not really so much recognized. Then there is also agro-industrialization program, that is NDP4, NDP3, and upcoming NDP4, which prioritize export-oriented production. And you can see where the farmers are really surviving. Then besides that, we also have National Food and Nutrition Strategy. This policy is being implemented by Uganda Food and Nutrition Council, aims to enhance food and nutrition security in Uganda. Also, Uganda National Food and Nutrition Strategy and Investment Plan. This was approved in 2023, and this plan complements the plan of modernization of agriculture and addresses food and nutrition security. And also we have Uganda National Nutrition Action Plan. And this plan focuses on scaling up nutrition efforts involving various stakeholders, including government agencies, UN organizations, and international partners like World Food Program. And in addition, World Food Program has also country strategic plan, which also looks at food security and nutrition, livelihood support, and that aims at enhancing resilience among small-scale farmers, especially women, and support refugees self-reliance through food assistance and livelihood. So those are the policies which are here in Uganda, and they are really supposed to support the food production in Uganda. However, despite the progressive steps towards food sovereignty, towards food and food sovereignty itself remains constrained. Please. Remains constrained, and one is by corporate influence over seed and inputs, meaning that the seed, as I said before, our seed system has changed. Farmers are now looking more into the improved seed and those synthetic fertilizers to be used. Then weak implementation of farmer-centered policies. As I read, there are a number of them, but its implementation is still not up to date. Then there is also low pace of fast tracking the completion of the national agroecology strategy. The country is developing that, but the pace is going slowly, and there is a genetic resource for food and agriculture registration that would recognize farmers' right to save and exchange seed and biodiversity. So those processes are very slow, and which affects the farmers' progress. Now, looking at activities done by ESAFF Uganda on food and food sovereignty. One is ESAFF Uganda's approach to food sovereignty is anchored on 4 pillars. One is agroecology, and in this we had a number of activities like promoting agroecology through community school in the communities where the farmers practice agroecology. We also do a school club, agroecology school club, where farmers write poem competition on topics around agroecology. We train journalists on how to communicate issues of agroecological products and practices. And also we market agroecological products on Climomark and many others. Aspect where we look at which food are we growing? Is it our own? Do we know about it? Do we eat what we grow? And do we protect our biodiversity? And in that we had also a number of activities. We also have another approach on agroecology-based enterprises and territorial markets. Recently, we had inter-border meetings with the community to trace what kind of products cross the borders, and how can we promote agroecological products across the borders. What taxes are being levied on that? And also we have policy advocacy and farmer organizing, and the farmers organizing that. And that has helped really widen the food and food sovereignty base, and also many activities to make the policymakers understand that agroecology is the way to go. Now, as I spoke before, in this we had a community agroecology school as an agroecology center of excellences, and we have 18 established 18 of them across the country. We have promoted farmer-to-farmer knowledge exchange and innovations, farmer profiling, pest and disease, that is identifying effects on crops, and also co-develop organic fertilizer and biopesticides as alternative to hazardous chemicals. We also support farmers to lab tests on nutritional content in the high value crops. And soon we are going to release the result on the laboratory test. We serve a regional hub for practical learning, research, and demonstration of sustainable food system. We also promote women-led innovations and youth inclusion. In the schools, as I said, we have agroecology clubs in schools, and in this we are active in 25 primary schools, secondary schools, and universities. We also built generation of youth advocates for food sovereignty. And as I said, we train journalists and communicators to understand and report on agroecology and food sovereignty narratives. We have practices, we have products which no one promotes them. And when you come to the advert, you find inorganic products are being advertised more than organic products. We also counter corporate misinformation on GMOs and industrial agriculture. We promote positive farmer stories through radio, printery, TV, indeed digital platforms. If you go to our website, you will get all those stories. And over 100 journalists trained since 2022. And this has improved media coverage on sustainable food system. And in the strengthening of seed sovereignty, we participatory plant breeding and farmer field schools where farmers co-develop and test. They co-develop and test. I hope I'm being heard. Integrate seed saving, they multiply seeds, and also breeding practices through community seed banks. And over 40 community seed banks have been established. We also we do advocacy, and in that we have supported a draft national strategy. We worked on that together with the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Industry and Fisheries. We supported them in that. We also we engaged in farmer variety registration processes together. I mean, that is under Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Industry and Fisheries, ensuring that recognition of farmer breed seeds are taken into consideration. We organize farmers into agroecological enterprise groups where we develop the enterprise and improve on value addition. We support them in solar dryers, milling, packaging, and we also look at quality assurance through participatory grantee system. We ensure that they have access to loan and small grants for the enterprise activities. We carry out market linkages via Kilimomat, that is an online application, and also conduct territorial markets. Then since 2024, we have this impact. We have 1,200 small-scale farmers access markets. They're able to sell through the Kilimomat, but also through other means. Others get in touch direct with the buyers. Then 60% women-led enterprises have been supported. At the regional and cross-border engagement, ESAFF Uganda collaborated with partners to help farmers produce, process, and market agroecological products that meet East African community standards and SPS protocols. We engage with the East African legislator committees on agriculture to harmonize agricultural trade framework across East African community countries. And we also supported farmers' participation in cross-border trade fairs, Rwanda and Tanzania. And that has widened our trade base, market base, I mean. However, we can't do all this without challenge. We have challenges like dominance of industrial agriculture models. There is limited finance to small-scale farmers initiatives. There is policy inconsistency between ministries. Then climate shocks affecting productivities. However, we have opportunities, and opportunities like growing policy of which is taking root in Uganda and also in the region. Then regional integration through East African Community Protocol. That has also empowered us a lot. Increasing youth interest in sustainable food system. That is through engaging the young ones in schools and also ensuring that the youth are fully engaged in value addition and the value chain processes. And also strengthen farmer movement and La Via Campesina solidarity in Africa and in the continent. In conclusion, food sovereignty is not just about power, integrity, and control over resources by the people who feed the nation. ESAFF Uganda remains committed to empowering small-scale farmers through agroecology, policy advocacy, and solidarity actions. Thank you so much for giving me this time. Thank you, Zaina. Back to you.
Ya, terima kasih. Thank you very much, Margaret, atas presentasi yang sangat komplit ya terkait dengan ke tanah, kemudian dari benih, dari pengolahan, dari pemasaran, dan memberikan pengertian terkait dengan kisah-kisah sukses agroekologi dan juga bagaimana menggerakkan pemuda ya dan juga advokasi kebijakan di tengah tantangan industri pertanian, kemudian juga tantangan perubahan iklim. Terima kasih Margaret, Ibu Margaret, dan kalau ada file dari paparan tadi bisa dikirim ke WA saya, nanti kita sebarkan ke seluruh peserta. Ya, please send your PowerPoint or document as you presented. Terima kasih Ibu Margaret. Dan sekarang lanjut ke kita terbang ke Asia Tengah ke Bapak Abdulvohid Safarov. So silakan Bapak Abdulvohid, terima kasih atas kehadiran dan silakan waktu untuk Anda Bapak Abdulvohid Safarov. Ya. Oke. Belum ada suara Bapak Safarov, mungkin tertutup follow ini ya. Ya, Ya, belum ada Bapak Safarov, your voice. Hello? Ya, oke, silakan. Yes, please. Ya, belum ada suara, tidak ada suara Bapak Safarov, no voice. Belum ada suara juga, no voice Bapak Safarov. You are mute, so please open your mic. You are mute, Safarov. Please open your mic. No voice. Hello? Still no voice. Maybe you can exit first and then come again because no voice. Oke ya, sambil menunggu Bapak Safarov. Jadi untuk informasi, Bapak Safarov datang ke Bogor ya bulan April lalu untuk menghadiri pertemuan pertukaran pelajaran pengalaman agrikologi di tingkat Asia ya pada bulan April lalu di Bogor. Oke. Ya, ya semoga sudah bisa. Ya. Atau Ana bisa buka file PowerPoint dari Pak Sarop baru saya kirim di WA Ana. Ya. No? Okay. There is no voice. Yeah. Okay. Okay, waiting for your to arrange your voice. Maybe we can move first to Leonardo. So uh, I will give time to Leonardo. After that, uh, your session, Mr. Safarov, while you fix the microphone. Ya, oke. So silakan Leonardo, you first. Ya.
Okay, thank you, Zainal. And it's a great honor to speak to you all here today. I want to thank also all the organizers from SPI, right, Henry, Zainal, and the other people from SPI who are doing this amazing work. I'm going to try to share my screen for the presentation. Yes. Can you see it?
Yes, yes, Leonardo. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm Leonardo Van Den Berg. I'm with the European coordination of La Via Campesina, but I'm also a farmer based in the Netherlands. And here in the Netherlands, I'm also active for Toekomstboeren, which is the Dutch chapter of La Via Campesina. And well, so Toekomstboeren is a member of the European coordination of La Via Campesina. And the European coordination of La Via Campesina, or ECVC, as we say, is the European region within La Via Campesina International, right? And La Via Campesina International consists of 10 different regions, right? Including Central America, the Caribbean, South America, North America, South and Eastern Africa, Western and Central Africa, South Asia, Southeast and East Asia, right? And Europe and the Arab and North Africa. So I'm here for the European region mainly, and also I will be talking a bit more about also the context in the Netherlands. And the ECVC, the European region, we have 31 different member organizations spread throughout the whole of Europe, and in 21 different European countries. And this include countries within the EU, but also countries that are outside the EU, but that are part of Europe, like Turkey, for example. A little bit about the European context, because if we look at agriculture in Europe today, a lot of it was shaped by what has happened in the past, especially after the Second World War, where we had a huge push for the industrialization of agriculture. And this included the mechanization, right, the introduction of tractors and a lot of heavy machinery, but also the chemicalization of agriculture, which includes the introduction of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, a lot of chemicals for agriculture. Later, there was also the push for hybrid seeds, right, in the 1950s, and also for GMOs in starting from the 2000s. But GMOs were there was a lot of resistance in Europe to GMOs, so there's very strict regulations for it. But later, in the 2010s, agribusiness corporations started to push for these new genomic techniques and saying that it's something different from GMOs. Well, it's actually the same, but they push for it as being something different so that they hope that it will not have so much legislative restrictions. Then also from the 2010s, there's a lot strong push also for the digitalization of agriculture, right? A lot of well, especially agribusiness and certain people are saying that to solve the problems that we have today in agriculture, we have to digitalize, right? And this includes the use of things like GPS, very complicated technologies, right? But also online platforms and things like that. We also had something that had a lot of impact on European agriculture is the push for neoliberal markets, right, or capitalist markets. Already from the 1980s, we had the liberalization of land. So in the past, there was a lot of restrictions on how you could use land or how you could exchange land, but since the 1980s, actually land has become a commodity which can be traded freely throughout Europe. The same for food markets, right? Before there were also things like price guarantees, but now the food market is actually completely liberalized. So there's a free flow of food, at least within the European Union. And they also have tried to expand this to some other continents or countries through free trade agreements. right? Already starting in the 2010s, where we had the CETA free trade agreement, and now there's a huge push for the EU-Mercosur free trade agreement, right? The free trade agreement between Europe and South or Latin America. And also now we have a push for carbon credits, right? Which is also a way of marketing, actually a market solution to the climate problem, the impacts that agriculture is having. We also had the subsidies. Yeah, in Europe we have a long history of subsidizing agriculture, starting with the Common Agricultural Policy in the 1960s. And the Common Agricultural Policy subsidized in the beginning, subsidies were coupled to production. So the more you produce, the more subsidies you got as a farmer. And now it's coupled to area. So the more land you have, the more subsidies you get. So these subsidies, they're benefiting actually only very large scale or highly intensive farmers. Small scale farmers usually do not have a right to these subsidies. So this has had a lot of impact. We see that as a result of industrialization and as a result of this neoliberalization, there has been a huge growth and a lot of control by large agribusiness corporations. They started to control a lot of the input markets here, but also the output markets. But also they started to control a lot of technology and innovation development, which first was mainly done by research institutes and universities. Now it's mainly large corporations who are doing this and receiving also a lot of subsidies to do this. I think that the European agriculture also has a lot of impact on the global south, and I cannot go into it very deeply, but just to mention some things is that because of industrialization and subsidies, there was huge overproduction in Europe, leading to also a lot of dumping of food in the global southern countries and ruining many farmers there. There has been a huge push also for Western agribusiness corporations to enter countries in the global south, right, including like the establishments of supermarkets and things like that in southern countries. Europe has also been very much inspired by this industrial agriculture, also been pushing for the green revolution, which also has, well, as we know, a lot of negative effects on farmers in the global south and countries. And also European agriculture is also pushing for land grabbing and deforestation in the global south. An example is soy. In the Netherlands has one of the highest milk production in the world, right? One cattle per day, for example, one cow produces on average 30 liters of milk. But in order to produce this amount of milk, we are very dependent on soy, right? So these cows, they are fed a lot of soy, and a lot of the soy comes from the Amazon region in Brazil. And there we see very large farmers and agribusiness are deforesting Amazon land to produce soy for the European market, right? So in this way, the European market is actually also driving deforestation, but also the eviction of indigenous people and small-scale farmers, right, who are often displaced so that large farmers can produce soy in the Amazon. So there are many other impacts on the global south as well. And there are also environmental impacts within Europe that industrial agriculture has had, right? Including the outbreak of a lot of diseases have come out of industrial agriculture here, including swine flu, foot and mouth disease. But there's also been a lot of impact on biodiversity, where we see now that 85% of indigenous plants in Europe have disappeared. And we have the issue of nitrogen deposition. And this is something that I will come back to later. But nitrogen, because of the very intensive agriculture, it is leading to a lot of emission of nitrogen. And this nitrogen then is deposited in surrounding areas. And this is leading to a lot of biodiversity decline, and this played quite an important role in the farmers' protest, which I will come back to later. Finally, it also had a lot of this industrial agricultural model has also had a lot of impact on European farmers themselves. One of them is access to land. We see that because of the commoditization of land, right? Because land has actually become a commodity that is part of the free market. It has also become an object of speculation, and this has also led to a lot of a huge increase in price of land. So, for example, in the Netherlands, the average price of land is 80,000 euro for 1 hectare. And for many farmers, especially new farmers or young farmers, this is it's too expensive. It's very difficult to buy. And so they end up renting land. But the renting of land is also a problem because the rights to rent land are very weak, or they have become actually very weak also because of the liberalization of the tenure arrangements. So, for example, in the Netherlands, many farmers only have the right to stay on the land for 1 year. If they are lucky, they're giving a contract for maybe 5 years, but many of them still have the right only to stay for 1 year. This is a very big problem because it makes it very difficult to build up a farm if you're only able to stay for 1 year, and maybe you have to move every time from your land. Another impact has been the rights to seeds, right? So a lot of the rights that farmers had to their seeds are now we don't have anymore, right? The right to reproduce your own seeds, the right to exchange, and the right to sell these seeds. Now it's actually mainly large seed producers that have these rights, and often farmers are not allowed to do this themselves. This has led to a lot of loss of traditional varieties and also a lot of loss of knowledge here. And then a very big problem is declining income. So what we see now is that the prices that farmers receive for their products that has been declining over the years, while at the same time the prices of inputs that they have to pay to produce have been increasing. So this is very much squeezing the income of farmers, even though we see that consumers are paying more and more, have to pay more and more for their food. And so this is because of the role of agribusiness, who are actually capturing a lot of the value in agriculture. So farmers, they are in a situation in which they're quite stuck, right? Their income is very much lowering. This is also putting a pressure for them to produce more intensively, while at the same time they are faced with a lot of environmental legislation, right? Because this intensive agriculture is having a lot of environmental impact. So the governments are responding with strict environmental legislation, and this is also burdening farmers. At least that farmers that produce in an industrial way, it's burdening them. And this is the effect is that a lot of farmers now are disappearing, right? We have an average of 1,000 farmers who are stopping per day. And if we look at the figures, we see that in 2003, we had in Europe about 15 million farmers. Right now, around 2020, we have 9 million, and the prospect for 2040 is that we will only have 3.9 million farming. So it's a huge decline in the number of farmers. And so the farmers, they are actually all over Europe in a very bit vulnerable situation. And this means also that they are that there's a lot of unrest amongst farmers, and there's a potential for this unrest to turn more to the right, or it can also turn more to the left. And what we see, what happened in the Netherlands, is unfortunately it turned to the right. And this was triggered by nitrogen regulations in 2009. So this nitrogen, this environmental problem that was being caused by agriculture, in response to this, the government put up restrictions, right? Restrictions on the practices of farmer, but also they threatened that if farmers exceed an emission of nitrogen beyond a certain amount, that farmers were threatened to be evicted from their lands. And this triggered a lot of protests. And in the beginning, these protests were quite politically quite neutral. But later, the agribusiness started to support these protests. And I think it's because agribusiness was a bit afraid. They were afraid that the farmers would turn against agribusiness, right? Because agribusiness, they are benefiting actually a lot from the current situation. So they were smart and they started to support the protest, and so that farmers, instead of blaming agribusiness, they started to blame the environmental legislation. And in this time, we also had the emergence of the BBP party, which is a farmers. It's translated as a farmers party, and it's a political party, a new party actually that emerged in 2022, and in 2023 they actually win the provincial elections. So in the Netherlands we have 12 provinces, and the BBB party, they won the election in all of the 12 provinces. So there was a lot of public support for them as well. Or a lot of people, they felt sympathetic, I think, to the farmers' protests. And then in 2024, we see also that the PVV, which is a far-right fascist party, they also started to support the farmers and put this issue on the table. And this also contributed to them winning. And in 2024, actually, we had a far-right government as a result here in the Netherlands. And this far-right government, now the government has fallen, fortunately, and we will have elections later this month, and we will see what will happen then. But in any case, what we have seen in the Netherlands, it was a very unfavorable situation where actually the discontent of farmers, it really turned to the right, because of these political parties. They were really able to manipulate it and blaming environmental regulations and blaming rules, but not really looking at the root causes that have caused actually this crisis in agriculture in Europe and in the Netherlands. So within ECVC, within the La Via Campesina Europe, we also started to discuss this. We said, okay, we have to be careful that this does not happen in other European countries, where we should not let the right take over all these concerns that farmers have, and we should start organizing our own protests. And so this is what we did. So before the European elections in 2024, ECVC and Toekomstboeren and other member organizations, we started to organize a series of protests in Brussels, which is seen as the capital of Europe, and to really address the real problems, the real causes that of the problems of agriculture. Right, so we started to demand for more fair income, but also for the regulation of markets, and also to stop free trade agreements, and actually to push for a system transformation of agriculture towards more food sovereignty and agroecology. And throughout Europe, you see a lot of this mix, right? These are two extremes, right? In Brussels, it was very strongly to the left, and in the Netherlands, strongly to the right. But if we look at the whole continent of Europe, we see a mix. All countries have both right and left farmers' movements. In Spain, for example, it turned more to the left. In Germany, it was very strongly mixed. There we also had protests. And it depends very much on, often what we see is that the more industrial agricultures are more to the right, and then the more small and peasant are more to the left. But there's also a continuum within this. And then next to this protest, of course, as ECVC and Toekomstboeren, we've been doing a lot of other work also to support the struggles of farmers. One of them is more important thing is to support more access to land to farmers. We are pushing for a land observatory within the EU. And land observatories to monitor actually land prices and land concentration. So this is something that we can debate more about within the European level. Also pushing for a land directive. This is for more the regulation. It's a kind of land reform so that the price of land is more regulated and also the conditions and redistribution of land. This is at the European level, but we also do this at a more national level within the Netherlands. Yes, and then another struggle point is also for better income for farmers, fairer income for farmers. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot of resistance to free trade agreements, right? More recently against this EU-Mercosur agreement, right? The free trade agreement between Latin America and the EU. And we organize mobilizations, but also we do a lot of lobby and advocacy work within the European Commission. And we're also starting to promote for more market regulation within the EU, right? To set minimum prices for products, and also to move away from this common agricultural policy, so that it's not so focused on subsidies that only go to large farmers, but that subsidies should support agroecology, and that it should not be so much about subsidies, but it should be more about regulating markets. And then we also have, of course, in our member organizations also promote a lot these more local markets, right? This direct selling between consumers and producers, so that it's not captured by large corporations. Then we have the rights to seeds. Also a lot of work we're doing on. So we are putting a lot of resistance against this deregulation of new genomic techniques, right? These new genomic techniques that agribusiness is promoting. And they are saying that it's not GMO, and we're saying, well, yes, it is GMO, so it should be very strongly regulated and restricted. And of course, we do also more local work to promote local seed banks, seed exchanges, and also seed festivals to also put more of these local seeds, give more attention to them and promote them more. And there are many other things that we're doing, but I thought I will leave it more or less to this, right? We're also doing more work on movement building, and supporting solidarity between different national struggles, right? We're doing a lot of exchange of knowledge, strategies and best practices between farmers, a lot also on agroecology, do a lot of farmer-led research and innovation, also creating links between ECVC and La Via Campesina, International. Well, and as I said, also a lot of mobilization and direct actions to defend farmers' rights. So I think this was my final slide. So thank you very much for your attention. And I'll give you back the floor, Zainal.
Thank you very much, dan terima kasih banyak Leonardo atas berbagi perjuangan ya, perjuangan ECVC, mulai dari permasalahan tentang land reform, kemudian terkait dengan perdagangan bebas ya, kemudian juga dengan decent income atau income yang layak, belum juga terkait dengan persoalan lingkungan, dan terkait dengan bagaimana ECVC berjuang untuk mengatasi semua masalah hal itu. Ya, dan untuk informasi, kemarin di Zimbabwe kita juga mengadakan pendidikan dan juga tukar berbagi perjuangan terkait dengan reforma agraria. Nanti kita bisa tanyakan pada saat sesi tanya jawab. Ya, terima kasih Leonardo. Dan sekarang kita kembali ke Bapak Safarov. Semoga sudah bisa mengatasi permasalahan terkait dengan suara. So please, Pak Safarov, Abdulvohid, the time is yours.
Yeah, hello everyone. Do you hear me?
Very good. Yeah.
Hey,
Finally. Okay.
thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. Hello once again to all Indonesian friends. We have been recently received by Indonesian friends in Bogor. So on behalf of our organization and Tajik people, thank you very much for receiving us. Today I would like to talk about a little bit about the Tajikistan food production system and a little bit about the activities that we are implementing in Tajikistan. I'm Abdulvohid Safarov. I'm the head of the public organization Anahita. I'm from Tajikistan, based in Sok Valley and in Dushanbe. So let me start first with the Tajikistan food production system, which is characterized by a challenging agroecological environment, a heavy reliance on scale subsistences and Deccan farms, and significant vulnerability to climate change and external shocks as well. While the country has achieved self-sufficiency in a few key staples like potatoes and onions, it remains not important of critical goods like wheat, vegetable oils, sugar, and etc. Government policies focus on achieving food security through state-led investment in strategic crops, especially wheat, but the sector faces deep-seated issues of what is okay. Okay, deep-seated issues of water scarcity, land degradation, and rural poverty. 93% of Tajikistan are mountains. 70% of rural population live in the rural areas. 60% of Central Asia water generated in Tajikistan. 22% of Tajikistan is protected area, which is a high percent among the world countries. 70% of the population are children and young people. 9,700, more than 9,000 species are plants, more than 1,000 are endemic species, and 267 of them are endangered. And the contribution to agrarian contribution to the GDP of Tajikistan is more about 20%. And the main agricultural regions in Tajikistan are Sogd province, which is situated in the north, and Khatlan province, which is situated in the south. Next, please. So Tajikistan agriculture sector dominated by small-scale productions like after independence and land reform, large Soviet collective farms, they used to be kolkhozes. They were broken down completely. So every single organization, international organization who wanted to come to Tajikistan, they started to come and conduct different trainings and reorganization of these kolkhozes into different association for then farms and Deccan farms. They renamed it a lot, but it brought nothing to the people that they used to work in the field. And today is sector basically dominated by Deccan farms. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Tajikistan faced the civil war. And the civil war brought a lot of damages to agriculture, not only to the country, but also to the agricultural sector of Tajikistan as well. We know what is the hunger, we know the price of the bread, the food in general in Tajikistan. This is one of the reasons why our Deccans do not protest, because we've been through the civil war, and it's just sits in our mind. So after all, after different reforms in agricultural sector, it became clear that Tajik farms started to earn to different organization, banks, and small scale credit organization more than $250 million. And at the end, the government thought that it collapsed the whole system of farming in Tajikistan at all. And the government of Tajikistan paid for the Decans this debts of 250 and asked them to start from zero. And from that time, it was decided that they will be divided into the Deccan farms. They are private farms that can be either individual or family-based. They are the backbone of commercial agriculture production, accounting over about 80% of the total output in agriculture sector. So household subsistences plots, many rural families cultivate small gardens. It starts from 0.1 to 0.3 for their own consumption. But if something left, they bring it to the local market for sale. The Tajikistan key crops production is divided between cash crops and export and for export and food crops for domestic consumption. So the main cash crops in Tajikistan is a cotton. It remains historically important. Next one, important export crops through its domestic has increased. Fresh and dried fruits, apricots, grapes, cherries, and vegetables are increasingly important for the domestic sale and export as well. Next slide, please. Food crops, wheat, and most critical steppe food. Potatoes, barley, maize, and rice are also growing in Tajikistan. Horticulture, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions is widespread as well. So livestock, this is the vital component of the rural livelihood that provides income and income to the local population, especially those who are living in the mountain areas. It's primarily small scale within families raising cattle, sheep, goats. So productivity is often not too high because of the limited fodder and veterinary services. So next slide, please. So the major challenges is the water scarcity. So as we told, that water scarcity in irrigation, despite being home of the headwaters of major river, Tajikistan suffers from the acute water scarcity for agriculture. It's important to mention that Tajikistan is the source of the 60% of all the water in the Central Asia. But we still have, if it's for the full of the Central Asia, but we still suffer from the water for agriculture. The Soviet era irrigation and drainage system are largely destroyed completely, leading to significant water loss. It's about 40 to 50%, and it brings to soil salinity. We have also another big issue which is still on the table. It is upstream, downstream tensions with the neighbors. For example, Uzbekistan and the lack of modern water-saving techniques like a drip irrigation creates the problem. After getting independence, so we had a bad relationship with our neighbor Uzbekistan because Tajikistan wanted to build a hydropower station which the Uzbekistan thought would stop the provision of main agriculture water which comes through this main hydropower, and they started to block the Tajikistan connected north to the south was through Uzbekistan, and they closed the border, mined the whole border, and we had significant problems with the agriculture and food delivery to the central part of Tajikistan and to the south. And the price during the winter was different in the same country because we couldn't deliver the agriculture, the food that is produced in the north to the south, and the food which is produced in the south to the north. So now, fortunately, we had an agreement with our neighbor Uzbekistan. Now this issue is under the negotiation, and I think it's going to be good for both countries as well. So land degradation, widespread soil erosion, salinity, and nutrient depletion are major concern. So reducing yield and arable land area. The new tendency of farming, by Chinese can bring to new unexpected issues. The people from China coming to Tajikistan and they are renting huge amount of land in Tajikistan. and they're doing farming in the rented land, and nobody knows what kind of chemicals they're using to produce the food in their land. And unfortunately, we cannot say what the condition of this land is going to be after the Chinese farmers will leave the land. This is another big issue that we face in here. So Tajikistan is highly dependent on import for key food items, making it vulnerable before the other countries. We importing the main food for Tajikistan, like wheat. We importing wheat from Kazakhstan, and which is the most important. We are importing our fuel from Russia, and sometimes the import of wheat and import of fuel from these two countries becomes a political issue, because if we are not on the political level, if we are not agree with those two countries on some issues, by some reason they stop exporting their wheat, they stop exporting their fuel, which brings to the huge problems to the Tajikistan. So that's why it's very important to have the food sovereignty in the country for all of us. The other big issue in Tajikistan is the climate change. This is a major threat that impacts glacier melt, which affects long-term water security, which shapes growing season and spread of the pests and diseases. The next slide, please. So, limited access to finance and inputs. Farmers often lack access to affordable credit, high-quality seeds, and modern machinery. This keeps productivity low. You know, the banking system in Tajikistan is not developed very well, because we do not have outside banks that come to Tajikistan and decrease the percentage of credit in here. The smallest credits that we get in here, the smallest percentage that the Deccan can get in Tajikistan is it starts from 20 and up to 35% per year, which are not affordable for every Deccan. So the other issue is the post-harvest losses. So it becomes about it may bring up to 30% of from the all agricultural production. So the government policy, the government of Tajikistan had made food security a national priority. Its policies are articulated in several key documents. So recently, Tajikistan developed a National Development Strategy 2030. This strategy aims to ensure food security and increases the prosperity of the population, with a focus on modernizing agriculture and development infrastructure. So the other document is the State Program for Food Security, which has been accepted in 2022, and this food security program is 2022 to 2027. This is a primary policy document focusing on food. Its main goal includes increasing domestic production, diversifying agricultural production, improving food accessibility, and enhancing food quality and safety. Next, please. So the other problem is the state order system. The next slide. The state order system. The government uses a system of recommended, so-called recommended planting areas and pre-arranged purchases, particularly for cotton and wheat, to ensure a baseline supply to strategic commodities. You know, this year we had lots of issues with the Deccan farms, with the farmers, that they started to crop different kind of the crops in their field, but the government came to their land and made them to break down all the crops and to grow up cotton. This was made by force by the different government structure, including police and other government structure in Tajikistan. Nobody knows why they're doing this, because there is no plan in the government system that we have to produce such amount of the cotton or this amount of this. But this, I don't know where it comes from. It's a local political issues that they would like to show themselves to the high state of government that they are producing this amount of food and cotton and etc. etc. So this becomes a very big issue, became a very big issue this year in the rural areas of Tajikistan as well. So subsidies and investment. The state provides limited subsidies for inputs like seeds and fertilizers, and invest in rehabilitating irrigation system. Often the support from international donors like World Bank and IFAD. Unfortunately, we cannot, our Dehqans cannot play with the Uzbekistan Dehqans, because Uzbekistan has the natural gas, which is easy for them to produce fertilizer, and the price for their food are much lower than the price that we produce in Tajikistan. And during the season, during the summer season, when the Uzbek farmers bring their agricultural products to Tajikistan for the low prices, so our Dehqans cannot sell them for the price, even for the price which they are produced. So this is another issue which needs to be taken under consideration. But the government, we are working on this issue with the government of Tajikistan in order to temporarily to stop importing some foods from outside when we have our production inside the country. So next, international support. Basically in Tajikistan, we have World Bank, IFAD, and ADB that financing large-scale irrigation rehabilitation projects, rural infrastructure, and access to finance for farmers. Unfortunately, each of those banks that are providing money for agricultural sector, they are working based on their priorities. Which means, for example, if Asian Development Bank works on particular sector, so it's supposed to be continued by the other bank, the continuation of activity. No, the other bank will come and start again with the same activities that started the other banks, because it is not within their priority. Though the other organization that is working in Tajikistan is FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, and the FAO is providing technical assistance on climate smart agriculture, seed system development, and food security monitoring in Tajikistan. The World Food Program also focusing on building resilience, school feeding program, and social safety nets, particularly in vulnerable areas. So till recently, we had also USAID and other bilateral donors supporting agriculture sector in Tajikistan. But unfortunately, we cannot rely on all of this organization, because their priorities can be changed, and the Tajikistan will stay with its own problems. So that's why it's all in our hands to develop our agriculture strategy based on our local farmers. So basically, the conclusion, so we have to massively invest in more than water efficient irrigation, widespread adaptation on climate resilience agriculture practices. We also are supposed to improve rural finance and access to inputs, so developing value chains and maintain stable trade relations as well. This is about the food security system in Tajikistan. If I don't know how much time do I left, so if I have some more time, I could talk about the small community that we are working with. What do you think, Zainal?
So please continue, Safarov. Yes. So we want to know about your struggle. Yes.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Next. So here's no up. our organization, Anahita, since 2007 works in the Yagnob Valley. Yagnob, the history of population inhabiting Yagnob Valley has common roots with a well-known and formerly powerful Sogdiana. So the territory, there were indigenous people that lived in there for centuries. Unfortunately, in 1970s, they have been displaced to the next slide. They have been displaced to the lowland where there were no water, nothing. This is their community that they are living right now in there. But this community were much more larger in 1970s. Unfortunately, they are living now in a small-scale villages right now. Next slide, please. And in 2019, with the support by our organization and we created a Yagnob National Nature Park, which generally it's about 50,000 hectares that provides food for the indigenous people that live in this territory. Before the internal displacement, there were about more than 4,000 people living in this area. But right now, there is about only 500 people that are living over there and feeding themselves with we can say that they're self-sufficient right now. Unfortunately, 7 months a year, there is no access to this valley, and they are living relying on Allah. If there is any diseases or there is any extraordinary situations, they cannot reach the big city, even if it's 150 kilometers long from the capital of Tajikistan, Dushanbe. Next slide, please. Imagine from this mountainous area and from this fresh water, they have been displaced to the. Can you push it down and down, please? And I can tell you to stop. So imagine from this mountainous area, they've been displaced to the desert land of Zafarabad, where there were no water, and every second person died after he stopped here. They have been displaced to this area. You see, there is nothing in here, so there is no water. They were displaced in here in order to live and to grow cotton. It was the planning system of the Soviet Union area in order to displace this indigenous Yagnobi people to this area. And next slide, please. So, next. Stop here. So after coming back to their homeland, they started to all over it again. Unfortunately, most of the agricultural experiences that they had before were lost, because all of the ancestors during the 10 years of the displacement mostly died. When we started to look for the ancestors in order to collect all the information that they had before, unfortunately, we couldn't find any older person right now. They are all now spread around Tajikistan, and we can say that most of them, they lost their traditional knowledge and their native language. Next. And our organization is conducted lots of training for them in order to create for them nature-based solutions. We taught the women in order taught them to do traditional craft in order to sell them in the market. Next. And we conducted also the tourism training for them in order to receive the tourism, in order to have alternative way of income. Next slide. And basically, we can say that they're self-sufficient. They provide themselves with all the necessary agricultural products, but the main agricultural product that they produce is a potato, and they produce a lot of potato. They still using the old methods of cultivating the land in this area, and during the autumn they're selling all their potato, and they're buying the stuff that they need to go through the whole winter So it stops around end of the November until the July. The road is blocked and they leave by their own. This is a traditional food. Basically, this is it. You can bring it up to the end. This is the potato they grow. Unfortunately, yeah, we can say that this is the local potato varieties that they used to grow in here is lost. This potato is brought. We call it Holland type of potato, and with this potato, the big corporation Britain brought not only the seed, but they brought also the diseases. With these diseases, they also brought their own medicine in order to fight these diseases. So this is a common problem everywhere, in not only in Central Asia, but all around the world. And the last thing we would like, this is traditional way of protecting the greens in the garden. So we're basically trying to help them in order to include the Yagnob National Park into the UNESCO list. Because there is still a threat of mining, because the Yagnob territory has lots of minerals and other, especially gold, and we don't want outside mining big companies to come and start mining in the area. Yeah, basically, this is it about the Tajikistan. If you have questions, please, you can ask. This is a use from Zafarabad where they've been displaced. We brought them, and we brought this scientist from the Academy of Science of Tajikistan in order to find out the local potato variety. So at least this year we found this variety, and we made a pilot project in order to rehabilitate the local variety. We'll see what's going to happen, and we are going to organize a local seed bank of the local variety agricultural products that are produced in the area. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih banyak Pak Safarov atas paparan kondisi tantangan alam, kondisi kekeringan, kondisi musim dingin, dan juga tantangan dari korporasi untuk gandum, untuk kapas, dan untuk kentang. Dan terima kasih atas paparan, dan kita jadi lebih tahu ya terkait dengan situasi di Tajikistan. Semoga kita ke depan bisa kerjasama dalam hal bagaimana mewujudkan kedaulatan pangan di Tajikistan. Thank you very much, Safarov. Sekarang saya menuju ke Mbak Hendarman untuk paparan terkait dengan perjuangan kedaulatan pangan di SPI. Silakan, Bung Hendarman. Lebih singkat ya.
Baik, terima kasih Mas Jainal. Selamat sore, dan juga kepada teman-teman dari Uganda, Margareth, kemudian Leonardo dari Eropa, dan Prof. Purva dari India, dan
Kurang keras, Mas.
tes cek. Bisa didengar, Mas? Oke. Oke ya. Baik. Terima kasih juga pada teman Safarov dari Tajikistan tadi yang telah menyampaikan beberapa paparan yang memang sangat menarik, khususnya bagi kita yang ada di sini di Indonesia dan teman-teman muda yang sedang melakukan pendidikan agroekologi hari ini. Saya Hendarman dari Serikat Petani Indonesia akan menyampaikan paparan dari Indonesia mengenai beberapa kondisi dan keadaan yang berkaitan dengan soal reforma agraria dan kedaulatan pangan, juga soal pendalian agroekologi dan koperasi. Nah, latar belakang situasi di Indonesia terkait situasi pangan global juga sempat dirilis juga oleh SOPI yang seperti disampaikan oleh Mas Jainal di awal tadi, bahwa SOPI juga mencatat angka kelaparan global itu setara 673 juta jiwa yang hari ini sedang terjadi ya di tahun 2025 ini angka kelaparan dunia ini masih sangat tinggi. Nah, kemudian FAO sendiri itu melalui indeks pangan global itu diumumkan pada 18 Agustus yang lalu, itu juga menunjukkan bagaimana tren harga pangan juga meningkat sejak 24 hingga Baik. Kita berangkat dari situasi pangan Indonesia saat ini, terlihat bahwa penguasaan tanah yang masih sangat timpang ya di Indonesia itu terlihat dari Badan Pusat Statistik yang kita lihat di rasio gini ketimpangan kepemilikan lahan itu di Indonesia masih tinggi, yaitu sekitar 6,8, sementara Badan Pertanahan itu menyatakan bahwa indeks Gini rasio penguasaan tanah itu mencapai 0,72, dan terkini pada 2022 itu BPN menyebutkan bahwa Gini di kisaran 0,58. Pendudukan penguasaan memang 58% tanah-tanah Indonesia itu memang timpang. Itu memang dikuasai oleh korporasi. Nah, inilah yang kemudian menyebabkan banyaknya sebenarnya terjadi konflik-konflik yang ada di Indonesia, hampir di seluruh Indonesia, khususnya di skala perkebunan besar ya, skala industri. Nah, laju konservasi juga, konversi lahan juga itu di pertanian itu juga sangat tinggi. Di mana di sini kita lihat bahwa khususnya sawah ya yang menjadi kemudian lumbung-lumbung pangan di Indonesia itu juga makin tahun makin kehilangan ya dikonversi menjadi bentuk-bentuk lain, menjadi perumahan, real estate, kemudian juga menjadi lahan pertanian lain, dan juga menjadi non perumahan. Nah, ini juga menjadi penyebab salah satu turunnya angka sebenarnya produksi beras yang ada di Indonesia. Dari BPS dan Kementerian Pertanian sendiri itu di laporan terakhir di 2023 menyebut bahwa ada 102.000 hektar per tahun laju konversi lahan khususnya persawahan di Indonesia. Nah, ini akan diperkirakan di tahun 2045 bahwa lahan sawah yang ada di Indonesia itu akan tinggal 5,1 juta hektar dari perkiraan baku sawah yang ada saat ini itu sekitar 7,46 juta hektar. Nah, bandingkan dengan luas tanaman sawit yang saat ini masih sebenarnya masih kita data juga, itu di angka mencapai 15,8 juta hektar. Nah, ada indikasi sebenarnya terjadi di lapangan bahwa itu lebih dari 20 juta hektar. Nah, itu yang sebenarnya juga menjadi penyebab utama bagaimana kemudian lahan-lahan pertanian di Indonesia itu semakin kecil. Nah, meningkatnya juga petani gurem, bahwa di Indonesia dari data yang ada saat ini kita melihat semakin meningkatnya petani gurem yang ada di Indonesia, khususnya di wilayah-wilayah pertanian ya, yang kemudian dari data kita di lapangan sebenarnya mengatakan bahwa ada di bawah 0,5 hektar sebenarnya. Kalau memang data kemarin itu masih terlihat, masih muncul adalah 0,5 hektar. Hari ini itu di antara 0,3 sampai 0,5 hektar sebenarnya penguasaan atau yang diusahakan oleh para petani-petani yang ada di Indonesia. Dari total jumlah itu mencapai 17,2 juta dari 27,7 juta hektar petani pengguna lahan yang pertanian lahan pertanian ini terlihat dari sensus pertanian BPS dari 2023. Nah, minim luasan ini juga ini sangat berpengaruh ya terhadap upaya peningkatan produksi pangan khususnya di sektor produksi padi yang memang menjadi pangan utama hari ini di Indonesia. Nah, Ini yang juga tidak akan selamanya misalnya kondisi ini akan bisa dipertahankan. Bahwa ada ancaman-ancaman ke depan juga akan lebih menurun lagi, bahwa lahan-lahan pertanian yang ada di Indonesia akan berubah fungsi, dikonversi selain lahan-lahan pertanian. Nah, titik krusial reforma agraria itu sebenarnya ada di sini, bahwa Serikat Petani Indonesia hari ini itu akan terus menggelorakan dan mendorong sebenarnya reforma agraria yang ada di Indonesia, agar petani-petani gurem ini mampu dan memang memiliki tanah dan kembali bertani, mendorong produksi-produksi pangan khususnya di sektor tanaman pangan dan khususnya padi. Nah, ketergantungan Indonesia itu sangat tinggi pada padi ya, sehingga beberapa nanti kita akan munculkan data impor beras dari beberapa negara memang sangat tinggi terkait soal hilangnya tanah-tanah atau sawah-sawah yang memproduksi pangan kita. Nah, kemudian regenerasi petani ini juga sangat mengkhawatirkan ya hingga hari ini. Hampir setengah dari populasi pengelola usaha pertanian di Indonesia, itu tepatnya 66%, itu berusia di atas 45 tahun hari ini. Nah, artinya memang krisis generasi muda yang untuk bertani hari ini menjadi persoalan tersendiri bagi Indonesia. Nah, makanya hari ini kita sedang mendorong sebenarnya melalui pendidikan pertanian agroekologi, bagaimana kemudian muncul petani-petani muda yang kemudian kembali bertani untuk sebenarnya menggantikan posisi-posisi yang hari ini petani-petani yang sudah berusia di atas 45. Sehingga kita coba terus mendorong dan menguatkan bahwa petani-petani muda itu akan mampu bertani, dan kita juga akan mendorong para petani muda juga melakukan sebenarnya gerakan-gerakan reforma agraria yang ada di desa-desa, sehingga lahan-lahan itu akan tersedia bagi mereka. Dan regenerasi ini memang menjadi persoalan, saya pikir hampir di seluruh benua lah ya, tidak hanya di Indonesia, tetapi juga mungkin di benua-benua lain itu terjadi. Nah, hari ini melihat contoh di Indonesia itu sangat sangat menyedihkan ya, menurut kita di Serikat Petani Indonesia, bahwa ketertarikan pemuda untuk bertani itu sudah dijauhkan ya dari tanah-tanah pertanian mereka. Nah, kemudian akibat sektor pertanian yang perlahan-lahan ditinggalkan oleh generasi muda ini kemudian memang dianggap tidak menjanjikan bagi generasi muda. Nah, ada 29.342.000 sekian. Ini adalah memang petani yang ada hari ini. Itu dengan perbandingan antara laki-laki itu di 25.100.000 sekian, kemudian petani perempuan di 4.200.000 sekian. Nah, ini yang memang perbandingan petani laki-laki dan petani perempuan yang ada di Indonesia dengan kelompok usia ya. Nah, sehingga memang regenerasi untuk petani muda ini sangat perlu bagi Indonesia, karena Indonesia adalah memang negara agraris, dan kita memang Serikat Petani Indonesia akan terus mendorong itu agar munculnya petani-petani muda yang memang militan ya terhadap pertanian, khususnya saat ini sebagai pemberi pangan. Nah, kemudian dari beberapa data yang ditampilkan ini di 2024 ya, data terakhir kita dapat dirilis bahwa Indonesia dengan impor beras di tahun 2024 itu hampir mencapai 4 juta ton. Artinya 3,8 juta ton itu diimpor ya untuk kebutuhan beras. Ini terkait karena memang sangat minimnya, sangat menurunnya produksi-produksi padi yang ada di Indonesia terkait soal konversi lahan tadi yang memang sangat masif terjadi di hampir seluruh wilayah Indonesia yang memproduksi pangan khususnya beras. Nah, kemudian daging, kita lihat daging sejenis lembu ini hampir 300.000 ton juga. Artinya di angka 238.000 ton. Nah, ini juga sangat menjadi kondisi yang sangat krusial ya di Indonesia karena harus mengimpor daging sapi, daging lembu yang ratusan ribu ton. Nah, kemudian ini juga yang menjadi penting bahwa kedelai itu dalam hitungan eh, di 2023 itu memang menurun dari 2019 ya, dari data ini itu kita mengimpor itu 2,27 juta ton kedelai untuk konsumsi masyarakat Indonesia, khususnya produk-produk rumahan seperti tempe. Nah ini, sehingga tempe-tempe yang ada beredar di Indonesia hari ini, khususnya di pasar-pasar tradisional, itu memang menggunakan kedelai-kedelai impor. Nah, ini juga mengkhawatirkan bagi kita bahwa di 2026 ketika memang keran impor kedelai, jagung, dan komoditi lain itu dibuka, maka akan sangat mengkhawatirkan ya bagi petani-petani kita yang mencoba hari ini untuk tetap bertani, kemudian tetap berproduksi, khususnya kedelai, akan dihantam oleh kedelai-kedelai impor yang memang sangat murah harganya dan indikasinya adalah itu GMO ya, yang kemudian khawatir juga untuk dikonsumsi oleh masyarakat. Nah, kemudian biji gandum kita lihat di sini, gandum itu juga di angka 10 juta ton, kemudian 10,3 juta ton, itu juga menjadi impor yang sangat tinggi juga bagi Indonesia, karena Indonesia hari ini memang tergantung gandum. Apapun produk itu memang berbasis terigu itu memang sangat banyak di Indonesia, khususnya produksi makanan. Nah, kemudian gula juga mencapai di 5,5 juta ton. Nah, kemudian garam juga begitu di angka 2,83 juta ton. Itu antara tahun 2018 sampai 2023. Nah, ketika alih fungsi lahan yang semakin masif pada sektor pertanian yang hari ini dan banyak ditinggalkan, maka konsekuensinya memang adalah Indonesia harus impor ya. Impor ini sangat tergantung dan memang bagaimana kemudian untuk memenuhi pangan nasional memang ketika lahan-lahan pertanian, kemudian pemudanya juga dan para petaninya sudah tidak ada lagi dan berkurang, maka memang solusi dari negara adalah mengimpor. Nah, itu yang harus kita antisipasi ke depan. Sebenarnya bagaimana kemudian SPI tetap melakukan kerja-kerja mendorong reforma agraria, kemudian kedaulatan pangan dan juga praktek-praktek pertanian agroekologi. Agar kemudian ke depan harapan kita memang mengurangi ya paling tidak impor-impor seperti gandum, kemudian kedelai, kemudian beras dan gula dan juga garam. Nah, pada slide berikut ini kita melihat bahwa kemiskinan di Indonesia itu di Maret ya, data yang terakhir kita update ini bahwa juga sangat bertolak belakang dengan kemudian yang disampaikan ya dengan 1 tahun Prabowo kemarin bahwa kemiskinan menurun menjadi sekian persen. Itu memang sangat bisa kita bantah hari ini dengan data yang ada dengan kita hari ini. Nah, di tingkat kemiskinan per September 2020 hingga Maret 2025 itu dapat kita lihat di data ini mencapai artinya di 11 juta masyarakat yang memang terjerat di garis kemiskinan. Nah, hal ini kemudian juga terkait tingginya konflik agraria ini juga menjadi salah satu penyebab kemiskinan ya, khususnya yang ada di pedesaan. Nah, Komnas HAM mencatat dari konflik-konflik agraria yang ada di Indonesia itu lebih dari 2.600 ya kasus-kasus yang masuk ke Komnas HAM. Nah, sampai hari ini pun di 2025 ini hanya beberapa ya kasus-kasus konflik-konflik itu yang mampu kemudian difasilitasi oleh Komnas HAM. Nah, kemudian kantor staf presiden sendiri KSP itu melalui tim percepatan penyelesaian konflik agraria itu juga dari mulai tahun 2016 era Jokowi ya sampai kemudian Jokowi tidak lagi, itu tercatat di 666 pengaduan yang masuk kepada KSP. Nah, terkait kasus konflik agraria yang berdampak pada 176.000 ya data yang ada di KSP hari ini. Dan sampai hari ini, sampai KSP sudah berganti-ganti pun beberapa konflik ini juga belum bisa terselesaikan hingga hari ini. Nah, kemudian SPI sendiri melalui tim nasional reforma agraria mencatat ada 148 kasus konflik agraria yang dialami oleh anggota yang tersebar di 17 provinsi, 51 kabupaten, mencakup di wilayah areal 549.913 hektar dan berdampak pada 94.251 kepala keluarga. Nah, data ini menunjukkan juga bahwa sampai hari ini misalnya gugus tugas reforma agraria yang dibentuk melalui presiden yang bertanggung jawab langsung sampai hari ini juga memang sangat lamban bekerja ya, sehingga memang beberapa konflik-konflik di wilayah itu sangat minim diselesaikan oleh mereka. Sehingga memang kita di Hari Tani kemarin dan juga Hari Pangan kita menegaskan bahwa pemerintah khususnya Prabowo itu juga harus segera membentuk sebenarnya badan reforma agraria yang langsung dia pimpin untuk menyelesaikan ribuan konflik-konflik yang ada di Indonesia. Sehingga ada jaminan bagi petani hari ini terhadap pemerintahan Prabowo yang memang lebih berpihak kepada petani. Nah, itu yang sedang kita dorong untuk di penyelesaian konflik-konflik yang ada di Indonesia ke depan. Nah, bisa dilihat di sini bahwa ada beberapa contoh kasus di anggota SPI sendiri bahwa penggusuran itu sebenarnya hingga hari ini itu masih terus masif terjadi ya, tidak hanya di PT LNK, contohnya di Sumatera Utara itu berkaitan dengan PT PN2, kemudian di basis Napal Putih LAJ itu di Provinsi Jambi, itu hari ini pun masih terus berlanjut. Kemudian penggusuran di Kendal terkait infrastruktur jalan tol Batang Kendal, itu juga masih terus kita dorong untuk penyelesaiannya. Kemudian juga yang terkait dengan korporasi besar Wilmar Group di Sumatera Barat, itu juga masih terus terjadi hari ini konflik-konfliknya. Nah, itu. Nah, kemudian kedaulatan pangan, konsep dan implementasi di Indonesia, itu bisa kita lihat bahwa kedaulatan pangan dalam konstitusi Indonesia itu berkaitan dengan beberapa produk kebijakan ya sebenarnya yang mendukung bahwa ada undang-undang dasar sebagai dasar negara, itu sudah jelas. Kemudian pasal 33 itu adalah pasal yang memang selalu menjadi rujukan bagi kita dan bagi teman-teman pejuang agraria ya, khususnya yang terkait sumber daya alam. Nah, kemudian juga ada di Undang-Undang Pangan nomor 18 2012, itu juga jelas. Nah, kemudian prinsip kedaulatan pangan yang sebenarnya terus kita dorong dan kita suarakan bahwa perbedaan antara kedaulatan pangan dan ketahanan pangan sudah jelas bagi kita. Nah, ini prinsipnya. Kemudian landasan kedaulatan pangan di Indonesia sudah jelas bahwa Undang-Undang Dasar dan Pancasila keempat itu mendukung bahwa sangat memberi ruang bagi kita untuk memperjuangkan dan menikmati kekayaan alam yang ada di negara kita. Kemudian juga UPA nomor 5 tahun 60, dan juga yang terakhir yang memperkuat instrumen bagi kita petani. Itu
Bisa dipercepat, Bung Ederman?
Ya, baik, siap Mas Jenal. Oke. Next, nah ini lini masa ini kedaulatan pangan dalam UNRWA kemarin sudah di PBB disahkan di 2018. Nah, kemudian ini ada beberapa lini masa soal kedaulatan pangan dari waktu ke waktu, dari kolonial, kemudian kemerdekaan, Orde Baru, dan reformasi hingga sekarang. Nah, ini yang sedang juga kita advokasi ya, artinya menjudicial review khususnya yang klaster pangan ya, untuk bagaimana kemudian itu lebih berpihak kepada petani dan masyarakat adat khususnya. Nah, kemudian ini cita Prabowo dan Gibran sangat minim sekali kita temukan persoalan reforma agraria dan kedaulatan pangan. Nah, kemudian dalam RPJM juga seperti itu. lebih mendorong pada korporasi-korporasi pangan yang kemudian berbasis food estate yang hari ini sedang digaung-gaungkan oleh Prabowo. Nah, kemudian dalam implementasi hari ini yang memang menjadi dilema di Indonesia itu adalah terkait makan bergizi gratis yang hari ini selalu viral dengan keracunan dan berbagai macam persoalan yang ada di dalamnya, sehingga memang harus kita koreksi terus terhadap kondisi MBG ini karena sangat besar menghabiskan anggaran negara ya. Bahwa dia tidak gratis, bahwa itu adalah anggaran negara ya, APBN yang memang digelontorkan dari pajak-pajak rakyat untuk membiayai makan bergizi gratis ini. Nah, kemudian fenomena terakhir yang terjadi dalam waktu cepat di Indonesia juga, bahwa dalam 2 bulan kemarin memang didorong pembentukan 80.000 koperasi merah putih di Indonesia. Bagaimana kemudian kita sudah lebih dulu juga sebenarnya menggaungkan bahwa 1000 desa, 1000 koperasi sudah kita deklarasikan, dan negara hari ini di bawah Prabowo Gibran juga mendorong 80.000 koperasi merah putih itu sudah dideklarasikan di desa-desa. Nah, hari ini memang ekonomi memang didorong melalui koperasi, tetapi tidak juga dengan top down yang dilakukan. Dan juga SPI sudah mendorong juga bahwa ekonomi petani itu memang harus melalui koperasi, dan itu memang harus terus digaungkan juga. Nah, kemudian soal perjuangan kedaulatan pangan, ada beberapa lokasi, kemudian luasan sebaran kawasan darurat pangan dari mulai Jawa Timur, Aceh, Jambi, Sumatera Barat, kemudian Ponorogo hingga Kalimantan Selatan. Nah, ini kemudian kawasan kedaulatan pangan dan sebarannya, kemudian juga kampung reforma agraria yang sudah kita didirikan di beberapa wilayah. Ini sudah kita dorong terus dengan produksi-produksi pertaniannya, termasuk peternakan dan juga hortikulturanya. Nah, kemudian isu soal kampanye kedaulatan pangan juga terus kita lakukan sampai hari ini. Di 16 Oktober kemarin juga kita lakukan aksi-aksi demo. Ini demo terakhir kita di Hari Pangan Sedunia Serikat Petani Indonesia, dan di berbagai wilayah kita lakukan juga untuk terus menekan pemerintah dan korporasi agar kemudian memang memberikan tanahnya kepada petani. Nah, ini yang sedang hari ini kita lakukan sampai di bulan November nanti, pendidikan kadar pemuda tani agroekologi yang menjadi harapan besar bagi kita khususnya di Indonesia ya. Ini ada peserta dari seluruh Indonesia yang hadir di sini, dari Papua hingga Aceh, dan kami pemuda di sini mohon supportnya ya, dukungannya agar memang teman-teman di sini menjadi pejuang-pejuang petani muda ke depan yang memang mampu mewujudkan reforma agraria sejati, kedaulatan pangan, dan agroekologi. Terima kasih, saya cukupkan sampai di sini. Kepada Mas Jenal saya kembalikan. Hidup petani, hidup SPI, hidup pemuda tani, hidup perempuan, merdeka.
Terima kasih banyak Bang Indraman atas sharing perjuangan SPI, dan kita akan break 5 menit ya, jika untuk bisa untuk sholat asar, dan sambil menunggu presentasi dari Bapak Raffi dari India. Kalau beliau belum bisa hadir karena ada urusan mendampingi petani di pengadilan, kita akan langsung masuk sesi tanya jawab setelah break 5 menit. Oke, terima kasih. Silakan Nafis atau Mbak Ana putar video Mistika tadi. Terima kasih.
Hidup petani! Saudara-saudara sekalian, hari ini kenapa kita penting hadir di depan Istana Negara ini? Karena masih besar angka kelaparan di negeri kita ini. Indonesia merupakan negara nomor 3 dari bawah. Ya, kita cuma di atas Timur Leste dan Laos untuk angka kelaparannya. Itu artinya sebenarnya negara kita ini walaupun gagah-gagah gedung pemerintah, gedung negara, kita sebenarnya masih kategori yang rakyat dalam kelaparan, saudara. Karenanya pada Hari Pangan Sedunia ini kita mengulang lagi apa yang sudah kita sampaikan kepada Presiden Prabowo tanggal 24 September yang lalu yang belum ditindaklanjuti sampai hari ini. Makanya kita datang hari ini. Hari ini adalah Hari Pangan Sedunia, teman-teman semuanya, teman-teman petani semuanya. Tetapi pangan sedunia tidak akan tercapai bila mana masih saja terjadi konflik agraria, terjadi konflik di petani yang ada di Banten, yang ada di Sukabumi, yang ada di Garut, dan ada di Indramayu, dan ada di seluruh Indonesia, teman-teman.
Gara-gara Indramayu lebar, lega. Kenapa orang Indramayu masih berluta-luta di kampung orang lain? Sampai petani dipenjarakan, Pak. Seperti suami saya pada tahun 97. Itu ditangkap, Pak. Dia dilarikan di Mapolsek dari pagi hingga sore. Jangankan makanan, Pak, yang diberikan, setetes air pun tidak diberikan.
Hal itu dikarenakan Bapak Ibu, hal itu dikarenakan pemerintah lebih mengedepankan ketahanan pangan, lebih mengedepankan korporasi-korporasi pangan dibanding petani-petani sebagai produsen pangan di skala nasional dan internasional.
Untuk itu juga menjadi alasan kita untuk terus melakukan aksi massa, turun ke jalan, turun di daerah-daerah, aksi massa di wilayah hingga di ibu kota. Kita akan terus melakukan aksi massa di istana dan juga DPR RI. Siap ya?
Kita harus ingatkan Presiden pemerintahan sekarang untuk menjalankan mandat konstitusi. Kita harus ingatkan, kita tidak meminta-minta, kita tidak mengemis-ngemis, tapi kita ingatkan mereka yang ada di istana sana untuk menjalankan mandat konstitusi. Setiap warga negara berhak mendapatkan kehidupan yang layak dan pekerjaan yang layak. Itu adalah mandat konstitusi. Kita petani SPI harus punya kewibawaan. Kedaulatan ada di tangan rakyat. Setuju? Siap berjuang, siap melawan. Hidup SPI, hidup petani.
Ya, terima kasih atas pemutaran film video lagi, dan mudah-mudahan Mbak Dinda sama Mas juga udah siap lagi ya. Oke, saya sudah siap. Ya, mungkin saya lihat Pak Raffi belum datang. Mungkin kita buka pertanyaan ya. Silakan memberikan pertanyaan dari 4 presentasi yang sudah disampaikan oleh Bung Herman, Bapak Safarov, Mas Leonardo, dan Ibu Margareth dari Uganda. Mungkin bisa kita memberikan pertanyaan apa saja yang mungkin menarik atau perlu keterangan lebih lanjut, mulai dari sisi reforma agraria, kemudian terkait dengan pasar, tantangan alam, kemudian tekanan internasional ya, tadi disebut oleh Pak Sawaf terkait dengan World Bank, IDB, ya, kemudian juga terkait dengan pasar teritorial, pasar lokal. Jadi silakan bertanya ya kepada empat pembicara yang sangat sempurna dalam menyampaikan pemaparannya. Ya, mungkin ada yang bertanya, mungkin terkait dengan reforma agraria di Tajikistan ya, setelah setelah eh, ber- terlepas dari Uni Soviet ya, atau mungkin dari Uganda, apakah Ibu Margaret masih ada ya? Alhamdulillah. Ya, silakan kalau ada pertanyaan dari pemuda-pemuda eh, yang di Puslikat terkait pertanyaan, silakan, ini kesempatan yang sangat bagus untuk memberikan pertanyaan kepada semua pembicara. Ya, silakan. Mungkin ada yang dari Jambi, ada yang dari eh, Sumatera Barat, juga ada, saya lihat ada peserta dari Malaysia, ya, ada dari Kamboja, ya, juga ada dari mana tadi, Myanmar. Ya, silakan
Jambi Mas
bertanya.
Zainal,
Ya, silakan.
pertanyaan saya kepada Leonardo yang dari Belanda itu.
Ya, ya kan Pak Sarwadi. Ya.
Saya ingin dapat gambaran agak lebih jelas tentang kondisi petani di Belanda yang tadi disampaikan oleh Leonardo. Di sana untuk bertani saja dibatasi hanya hak untuk pinjam atau sewa dibatasi untuk 1 tahun. Sejatinya bagaimana soal tata kepemilikan tanah di sana? Apakah bisa dimiliki oleh privat petani sendiri walaupun harganya mahal, atau tanah memang dikuasai oleh negara? Dan bagaimana ketimpangan terhadap penguasaan tanah oleh petani, oleh pengusaha, dan oleh lembaga-lembaga badan-badan negara lainnya? Itu saja Mas Zainal, terima kasih. Mau disampaikan kepada Mr. Leonardo. Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Sarwadi. Ini juga mungkin bisa menjadi pertanyaan juga untuk pertanyaan ke Ibu Margaret dan Pak Safarov.
Ya
Silakan
betul
dari,
juga di beberapa tempat yang lain. Silakan.
ya, silakan Pak Leonardo menjawab pertanyaan dari Bapak Sarwadi, Ketua SPI Wilayah Jambi.
Okay, thank you very much for this question. So if we look at the Netherlands, most of the land is owned by very large farmers, but also by agribusiness corporation, and more recently also by pension funds. And this is possible because all of the land in the Netherlands is in a way private, so people can buy and sell it, and as a result, there's a lot of land concentration and also investment and speculation in land. And this is also the reason why the land is very, very expensive here. And for smaller farmers, including myself, it's very difficult to buy land. So as I mentioned before, the average price of land in the Netherlands is about 80,000 euro, and that is quite a lot of money. And therefore we have to rent the land from larger landowners. But here also our rights, well, as you said, they are not so good. Um, the legislation says that landowners, they're only obliged to give a 1 year contract. They can give a more year contract if they want to, but usually for them it's more easier to give a 1 year contract. So if they don't like you, they can send you away. For my own situation, we had a 5 year contract, for example, but now it's ended, and now we have to look for another piece of land because the landowner decided not to continue the contract. But this is a situation that many small-scale farmers here face, that they cannot buy land, so they have to rent it, but they can only stay for a short time, and then they have to look for land again. I hope this answers your question. And I'm also curious to hear about how this is in the other countries.
Oke, terima kasih banyak Leonardo atas jawaban.
Can
Mungkin
I
ya
share my
bisa Ibu
experience?
Margareth, ya silakan.
Okay. For the case of Uganda and Africa at large, you find there are different types of land ownership, freehold tenure system. This is the most secure form of land ownership where the owner has complete control over the land and can use, sell, and transfer it without restriction. Only Ugandan citizens can own land under freehold tenure system. Then we have leasehold tenure system. This involves renting land for a freeholder for a specific period of time. Now, this is where the investors come in. Where the investors come in the country, they get freehold lease title. It can be for 40 years, 20 years, 90 years. After that, when the agreement elapses, they have to leave the land. And then we have Milo land. This system is unique to Uganda and it involves dual ownership structure where the landlord and the tenant by occupancy have the right to the same land. And mostly this one is with the chiefdomship, especially with the Baganda Kingdom, Banyoro Kingdom, Basoga, and others. So for them, they have Milo land, but the landlord and the tenant have equal right on the land. Then lastly, we have the customary land. This is now where I fall. In my community, the land is customary owned, and this is a most common form of land ownership in Uganda, covering approximately 75% of the country's land. So majorly the most part of the land is owned by customary ownership. And it is by
Bu Margaret, mungkin kamera bisa ditutup agar lancar sinyalnya.
governed by the traditional customs and practices. My grandparents and my children also. My data is off.
Halo? Mungkin Dinda yang hilang suaranya sekarang. Halo? Oke,
Ella, are you getting me? Are you getting me?
suaranya kecil, Ibu Margaret.
Yes. The network is not stable, but I believe you can hear me now. So
Okay.
the last thing I was saying was the customary land, which is a kind of inherited, and that is where most part of land in Uganda falls. It covers 75%, meaning that the community own the land. If there are government programs, the government has to buy it from the people. But the challenge there is the women's land right is not respected. Yet they are the majority they are the majority engage in agriculture. So you find the tradition say you are a woman, then you don't need to own land. Yet she uses the land to produce food for the family. So that is where our battle is. The tradition, the cultural leaders do not respect the women's land right. So that is the land ownership in Uganda. Thank you so much.
Oke, terima kasih Ibu Margaret atas penjelasan terkait dengan agrarian reform atau sistem agraria di Uganda. Kemudian saya berlanjut ke Bapak Safarov, bagaimana model kepemilikan tanah di Tajikistan.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yes. Thank you very much for your questions. In Tajikistan, basically, according to the law, the land is owned by the state. So, sorry, once again, I started, I didn't listen to you. So, in Tajikistan, based on the legislation, all land is owned by the state. But individuals and entities can be granted land use rights, which can be leased or transferred under certain conditions. Foreign individuals and legal entities are restricted I think, up to 50 years. Yeah, up to 50 years maximum for non-alienable land use rights. So basically the agricultural lands are given for life to the Deccan farms, and this land can be passed to their children or to the next member of the family, and this land also can be used in a bank operation like for lease and etc. Officially, land cannot be sold in Tajikistan at all. If you have a house built on this land, you can sell a house or any construction that on the land, but not the land itself, because it's completely prohibited. The land belongs to the government. If the government wants, for example, to take it out, anytime it can come and take it out. This is one of the reasons that the government forces the Deccan farms to grow certain types of crops like cotton and wheat. If the farmer is not agree, so they can threaten him that they can take the land away and pass it to another person. This is the situation with the land rights in Tajikistan.
Oke, terima kasih ya Pak Safarov. Mungkin Bang Hendarwan bisa juga menerangkan secara singkat bagaimana model ke agraria di Indonesia sehingga Ibu Margaret, Pak Safarov dan Leonardo bisa menambah wawasan tentang sistem keagrarian di Indonesia. Ya. Gak ada suaranya, Bang Hendarwan. Ya, silakan, Bang Hendarwan. Ya, silakan, Bang Hendarwan.
Cek,
Baik.
sudah ada. Cek, cek. Baik. Terkait kepemilikan tanah di Indonesia, itu ada beberapa status kepemilikan. Misalnya yang diakui oleh negara itu adalah kepemilikan wilayah-wilayah tanah ulayat. Itu juga menjadi sebuah pengakuan oleh negara. Nah, kemudian kepemilikan tanah secara pribadi, hasil usaha sendiri, itu memang juga diakui oleh negara. Nah, tapi dalam konteks reforma agraria, yang banyak terjadi adalah memang hampir sama di semua tempat ya, di beberapa benua. Nah, termasuk di Indonesia adalah bagaimana kemudian banyak korporasi yang kemudian juga menguasai tanah-tanah. Itu banyak tanah-tanah juga, tanah-tanah ulayat atau tanah-tanah adat yang mereka kuasai melalui mekanisme yang kemudian difasilitasi oleh negara. Biasanya ini terjadi. Nah, bagaimana kemudian perampasan-perampasan tanah, land grabbing itu juga sangat masif ya di Indonesia. Bahwa hampir di seluruh pulau, seluruh wilayah di Indonesia, khususnya yang terkait dengan petani-petani Serikat Petani Indonesia, itu memang banyak terjadi konflik-konflik yang memang tanah-tanahnya itu diambil oleh korporasi atau memang dia berkonflik dengan negara yang kemudian diklaim masuk dalam kawasan hutan. Nah, terkait kepemilikan di Indonesia memang juga dibatasi dalam UPA nomor 5 tahun 60 itu bahwa untuk di wilayah eh, Pulau Jawa, Bali dan Lampung itu memang maksimal hanya di 2 hektar ya, karena memang kawasan hutannya sudah habis. Nah, terkait kemudian di luar wilayah eh, Jawa, Bali, Sumatera, Kalimantan, Papua, itu para petani bisa memiliki maksimal adalah 5 hektar. Nah, di atas 5 hektar biasanya negara itu mendorong ada izin hak guna usaha yang ada di atas tanah tersebut. Nah, memang sangat masif ya perampasan-perampasan tanah yang ada di Indonesia, khususnya oleh korporasi-korporasi transnasional yang kemudian juga didukung oleh oligarki-oligarki yang ada eh, di tataran eksekutif maupun legislatif. Nah, sehingga ini yang membuat banyak petani kita itu terlibat atau dikriminalisasi oleh korporasi maupun alat negara yang kemudian menjadi alat penekan juga bagi para petani yang ada di Indonesia. Nah, itu terkait dengan struktur ketimpangan agraria yang ada di Indonesia. Mungkin itu, Mas Jenal. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih eh, Bang Andre atas penjelasan dan juga situasi kepemilikan agraria di Indonesia, kemudian di Uganda, juga di eh, eh, Belanda dan Tajikistan. Dan saya lihat ada chatting dari Mbak Dani dari Kamboja. Mungkin bisa dimakan langsung Mbak Dani. Maybe you can speak directly. Otherwise, I will read. So, in Tajikistan, one of the main struggle faced by peasants is access to affordable credit. What strategies? Yeah, ya. Terima kasih Mas Yoga. Jadi ini pertanyaan untuk Pak Safarov. Silakan Pak Safarov bisa menjawab pertanyaan dari Mbak Dani dari Kamboja. Ada di pesan pesan chat Safarov.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. So, in order to improve the credit line for the agriculture sector in Tajikistan, first we have to bring outside banks, also foreign banks into Tajikistan. Because right now in Tajikistan, there is a monopoly of banks that belongs to the government, let's say. They're not government-led, but relative government who owns those banks. And basically, this is the policy of this is the government who does not let the foreign banks to come to Tajikistan, because as soon as they come to Tajikistan, all those banks will be bankrupted because the loans will be down, the percentage of the credits will be down, and etc., etc. But there is another side of the coin that, for example, if there is any situation happens in Tajikistan, if there is any special cases needed in Tajikistan, so the government know whom to ask for finance I mean, those banks that belongs to themselves as well. So this is one of the main challenges that we cannot change anything in Tajikistan. We've tried a lot in bringing other banks to Tajik bank system. Unfortunately, the government resists to them, and they don't want them to come in here because they will start to create lots of problems to the local banks, and the local banks can be bankrupted. But in compare with the previous years, there is the percentage of the loans and the credits for the Deccan farms is a little bit decreased now. We can say it, because at the beginning it was about 30 to 40% per year, but now it's decreased up to sometimes it's from 15 to 25, and this 15%, it's also the money of the foreign international organization like UN agencies, like GEF has launched the program of small credit or grants, small credit and loans to the Deccan farms. So basically, in the near future, I don't see any perspective of solving this issue, and it's not within our competencies and to solve this issue. But we are talking with the government about this, and for this we need to create a huge working group, which includes the bank sector, the peasants, the other international organization donors, and etc., in order to solve this problem. Basically, these problems need a lot attention, not by us, by government, by international donors, and etc. And I don't see the solution of this problem in the near future in Tajikistan. Thank you.
Oke, terima kasih pertanyaan dari Mbak Dani dan juga jawaban dari Pak Safarov terkait dengan tantangan bantuan keuangan untuk petani-petani di Tajikistan. Dan mengingat waktu sudah hampir jam 5, kita akhiri saja diskusi ini, dan kita bisa berlanjut ke webinar-webinar yang lain. Sebagai contoh, nanti tanggal 25 November kita akan mengadakan diskusi publik webinar terkait dengan hukum perbenihan internasional, dan juga mungkin 15 November terkait dengan perubahan iklim. Dan semoga bisa kita hadir dan juga memberikan masukan. Dan untuk sebagai penutup, Bapak Henry Saragih bisa memberikan kata penutup.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Luar biasa sekali diskusi kita hari ini. Ya, kita sudah bertukar
Suara
pengalaman.
ketum tidak masuk.
Halo, dengar?
Ya, dengar, Bang Henry.
Ya.
Ya.
Luar biasa sekali ya diskusi kita sore hari ini. Ya, di mana kita sudah saling tukar pengalaman perjuangan kita untuk mewujudkan kedaulatan pangan ini, dan semoga pengetahuan yang kita sebarkan hari ini juga bisa menjadi semangat perjuangan kita ya untuk mewujudkan kedaulatan pangan ya di dunia ini. Dan tentunya kita Lapia Campesina ya, perjuangan kita ini harus maju terus ya, karena sesungguhnya dari konsep-konsep perjuangan ya kita sudah berhasil ya mendorong konsep kedaulatan pangan ini sebagai alternatif yang kita perjuangkan selama 30 tahun ini. Jadi saya pikir terima kasih yang sebesar-besarnya kepada seluruh narasumber, kepada panitia dari Serikat Petani Indonesia maupun peserta seminar kita hari ini. Terima kasih. Maju Lapia Campesina, maju petani dunia. Hidup Lapia Campesina.
Hidup. Oke.
Hidup SPI.
Terima kasih Pak Ensa lagi, dan semoga nanti kita dari Lapia Campesina Asia dan Eropa bisa berkunjung ke Tajikistan ya untuk bersaling bertukar pikiran di Tajikistan. Terima kasih Ibu Margareth, Pak Leonardo, Pak Safarov, dan Bang Hindarwan atas presentasi di webinar saat ini, dan terima kasih ke Mas Yoga dan
You're
Mbak
always
Dina
welcome.
sebagai penerjemah. Oke, kami kembalikan ke Mbak Cindy untuk sekaligus menutup acara ini. Terima kasih. Hidup petani. Ya, silakan Mbak Cindy. Ya.
Oh, udah.
Bagaimana?
Udah ya. Jadi itu dia kegiatan kita hari ini, di mana tadi para narasumber dari Uganda, Margareth, kemudian Leonardo dari Belanda, kemudian Abdul dari Tajikistan, dan Bapak Henderman dari SPI Indonesia sudah memaparkan bagaimana situasi dan kondisi yang terjadi di masing-masing negara. Harapannya semoga webinar ini bisa menjadi peluang untuk kita semua dan bisa menjadi pengingat kita untuk terus memperjuangkan kedaulatan pangan di dunia. Mungkin itu dari saya. Mohon maaf untuk kurang dan lebihnya. Sekian, terima kasih.
Yuk, makasih. Makasih Leonardo. Thank you Leonardo, Margaret, Safarov. Bye. Terima kasih Mbak Cindy, Mas Henderman. Oke.
See
Oke,
you
bye.
next time.
You.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye. Hey.
Bye.
Hey. Hey, berani. Oke.